Emily, please don't come to the wedding, my sister typed in the family WhatsApp group. Then my mother added, we don't want drama. My cousin reacted with laughing emojis. I stared at the screen because they had no idea what report would arrive in 3 weeks. My name is Emily Carter. I'm 34 years old. I work as a mid-level financial compliance analyst at a regional bank. It's a quiet job. The kind of job most of my relatives never really understood. Whenever someone asked what I did, their eyes would glaze over before I finished the first sentence. I grew up in a family where my younger sister was always the favorite. She was praised for her beauty, her charm, the way she could light up a room just by walking into it. Me? I was the boring one. The one who stayed home organizing files while everyone else went out and celebrated something. But here's what nobody noticed. I was the one who helped my parents pay their bills when things got tight. I was the one who proofread contracts for relatives who couldn't be bothered to read the fine print. I quietly fixed financial mistakes for family members who never once said thank you. At family gatherings, I was treated like background furniture, useful when they needed something, invisible the rest of the time. My whole life, I tried to earn respect from people who valued appearances more than honesty. I wasn't rich or glamorous. I lived in a small apartment with thin walls and a kitchen that smelled like old coffee no matter how many times I cleaned it. I drove a car with over 150,000 miles on it. I kept my life simple because simple was all I could afford. But I had something they didn't expect. My job involved noticing things most people ignore, especially when money moves in strange ways. And sometimes, being underestimated means people stop hiding the truth around you. If you've ever felt overlooked in your own family, if people judged your worth by how loud you were instead of how hard you worked, then you already understand this story. Subscribe if you've ever been underestimated. I want to ask you something honestly. Has anyone in your family ever acted like you didn't matter? Drop a comment and click like or hype. You might be surprised how many people feel exactly the same way. The family WhatsApp group had been dead for months. Then Lauren got engaged, and suddenly it exploded with activity. Messages flying in at all hours. Venue ideas. Dress photos. Flower arrangements. Everyone had an opinion, and everyone was excited. I was excited too. I wanted to help. So I did what I always do. I put together a budget spreadsheet. I researched vendors with strong reviews and fair prices. I sent it all to the group thinking it would be useful. Lauren's response came fast. Relax, Emily. Not everything needs a spreadsheet. A few people laughed reacted. I didn't reply. A week later, Lauren announced she'd booked a luxury wedding venue outside the city. The kind of place with chandeliers and imported marble and a price tag that could buy a small house. This was the same family that complained about grocery prices. The same parents who asked me for help with their electric bill 6 months ago. I called my father privately. I kept my voice calm. Dad, how are you guys affording this? He snapped before I even finished. Your sister deserves something special. Don't start with your negativity. I let it go. Then it happened. The public humiliation I never saw coming. Lauren typed directly in the family group. Emily, maybe it's better if you skip the wedding. You always make things tense. Before I could even process it, my mother added her own message. You always make things awkward. I watched the reactions pile up. Laughing emojis. Thumbs up. My chest felt tight. The smell of my apartment seemed to close in around me. Stale air and silence. I didn't respond. Not a single word. A cousin messaged me privately a few minutes later. Don't take it personally. Lauren just thinks you're jealous. Jealous? Of what? Of a wedding nobody could explain how they were paying for? I left the group quietly. No dramatic exit. No final message. I just tapped the button and walked away. But that same week, something happened at work that changed everything. A large suspicious transaction came across my desk. It was connected to an account linked to a small business. A business registered under the name of Lauren's fiancé. Compliance rules required me to review the activity. I didn't think much of it at first. I'd flagged hundreds of transactions over the years. But then I saw a familiar name tied to the transfers. A name I recognized not from any client file but from my own family. The wedding money might not be as clean as everyone thought. Wedding invitations went out 2 weeks later. Thick cream-colored envelopes with gold lettering. I know because Rachel, my cousin, sent me a photo of hers. She wasn't trying to rub it in. She was confused. "Did you get one?" she asked. I hadn't. I found out from my aunt, who called me with that careful voice people use when they're delivering bad news, but pretending it's no big deal. "Lauren said you were busy with work." That was the excuse. Too busy. Not unwanted. Just conveniently unavailable. Even distant cousins I hadn't seen in 5 years received invitations. People who wouldn't recognize Lauren on the street were going to watch her walk down the aisle. But not me. Not her own sister. I swallowed it. I always swallowed it. Then came the family birthday dinner a few weeks before the wedding. It was for my uncle's 60th. I hadn't planned on going, but Rachel convinced me. "You have every right to be there," she said. So I showed up. The moment I walked into the restaurant, the air shifted. I could feel people glancing at each other. The sound of silverware on plates seemed louder than the conversation. Lauren was sitting at the center of the table like she always was. She looked up when I sat down and smiled in a way that wasn't a smile at all. Then she said it loud enough for everyone to hear. "Careful, hide your bank statements. Emily's here to audit everyone." The table erupted in laughter. Deep, rolling laughter that bounced off the walls of that small private dining room. I could feel the heat climb up my neck. I stayed for 20 minutes. Then I picked up my coat and left without saying goodbye. Nobody followed me out. 2 days later my mother called. Her voice was soft, almost sweet. She needed my help reviewing what she called a simple loan document. I agreed because that's what I always did. When the document arrived in my email, I read it 3 times. It wasn't simple. It was a loan agreement that used my parents' home as collateral. The borrower wasn't my father. It was Lauren's fiancé. The loan amount was enormous. The structure of the agreement had red flags I could spot from a mile away. Layers of guarantees that made no sense for a small business. I called my mother immediately. "Mom, this is dangerous. The way this is set up, if his business goes under, you lose the house." She sighed. "Emily, he's family now." I tried my father next. "Dad, please listen to me. This loan structure looks risky. It might even be illegal." His response was cold and final. "Stop pretending you know everything." So I stopped talking to them about it. Instead, I focused on what I could control. At work, the suspicious transactions kept appearing. More transfers. More questionable patterns. The same accounts cycling money through layers that didn't add up. Shell companies with no real operations. Payments for services that didn't exist. And all of it connected to the same business. Lauren's fiancé's business. The more they pushed me away, the closer I got to the truth. My job at the bank isn't glamorous. There are no corner offices or fancy titles. I sit at a desk with 2 monitors and a cup of cold coffee, and I track suspicious financial activity. I prepare compliance reports that get sent to regulators. Most of the time, the people involved are strangers. Names on a screen. Numbers in a spreadsheet. But this time the names weren't strangers. What my family didn't know was that I'd been collecting transaction records, internal reports, and transfer trails connected to Lauren's fiancé's business for weeks. The pattern was undeniable. The money used for the wedding, the luxury venue, the imported flowers, the designer dress, all of it appeared to come from fraudulent loans and misused investor funds. Money that didn't belong to him. I was legally required to report it. There was no gray area. No loophole I could hide behind even if I wanted to. But then I noticed something worse. My parents' house appeared tied into the scheme as collateral. If the investigation moved forward, everything they owned could be at risk. The quiet daughter they mocked at dinner tables. The sister they excluded from the wedding. The one they told to stop pretending she knew anything. I was the person responsible for flagging the very transactions paying for their dream wedding. I sat at my desk for a long time that night. The office was empty. The hum of the fluorescent lights above me was the only sound. I could feel the weight of what I was about to do pressing against my ribs. Reporting the activity could trigger a formal investigation that would tear my family apart. But ignoring it could destroy my career and make me complicit. I submitted the report. 3 weeks later, the bank prepared the official investigation file. Rachel called me 2 days after I left the WhatsApp group. She was the only cousin who ever checked on me. The family called her the black sheep because she'd dropped out of college and moved across the country to work at a nonprofit. She didn't fit the mold either. I saw what they did in the group chat, she said. Her voice was tight with frustration. That was cruel, Emily. I told her I was fine. I wasn't, but I told her I was. Then Rachel said something that made me sit up straight. Something feels off about this wedding. The money. The way he talks. Lauren's fiancé was bragging at the engagement party about easy investor money. Like it was a joke. My stomach dropped. I couldn't reveal what I'd found at work. Compliance rules are strict, and I'd already crossed enough emotional lines just by continuing the review. But I chose my words carefully. Rachel, I can't tell you specifics. But if you have any financial ties to anyone in this situation, protect yourself. Now, there was a long pause. She didn't ask questions. She just said, "Okay, I trust you." Rachel told me she'd support me if things exploded. She meant it. I could hear it in her voice. Meanwhile, the family grew louder. The wedding came and went without me. Photos flooded social media within hours. Lauren in a white gown standing under a crystal arch. My parents beaming. Relatives I hadn't spoken to in years raising champagne glasses. Lauren captioned one post with words that burned into my memory. Best day of my life. Surrounded by everyone who matters. I sat in my small apartment scrolling through those photos. The light from my phone was the only brightness in the room. Rachel sent me a message late that night. They think they've already won. I put my phone down and stared at the ceiling. They didn't know. The compliance report had already moved to regulators. The clock was ticking. And the truth was heading toward them faster than any of them could imagine. 3 weeks after the wedding, federal financial investigators arrived at Lauren's fiancé's business office on a Tuesday morning. They came with warrants. They came with questions. They came with files. The news hit the family like an earthquake. Rachel called me first. Her voice was shaking. "They're saying it's fraud, Emily." Federal investigators showed up at his office. "It's all over." I closed my eyes. I didn't feel satisfaction. I didn't feel vindicated. I felt exhausted. The investigation revealed everything. Lauren's fiancé had been using fake invoices to siphon investor funds into personal accounts. The luxury wedding venue. The honeymoon trip. The designer everything. All of it paid for with money that belonged to other people. And the loan tied to my parents' home was frozen. The house they'd lived in for 30 years was now tangled in a federal investigation. My father called me that evening. He didn't start with hello. "Did you report us?" His voice cracked with something between anger and fear. I kept my voice steady. "I didn't report you. I reported illegal transactions. My job requires it." He went quiet. Then Lauren got on the phone. She was crying, but her words came out sharp like broken glass. "You ruined my marriage. You did this because you're jealous. You've always been jealous." I let her finish. Then I responded quietly. "No, the truth did." Over the following days, investigators explained to the family how the case began. A bank compliance report had mapped every suspicious transfer, every fake invoice, every dollar that moved through shell accounts to pay for a wedding that was built on lies. And the family finally realized who wrote that report. Silence replaced years of mockery. No more laughing emojis. No more jokes about auditing bank statements. Just silence. My father called me one more time a week later. His voice sounded small. Smaller than I'd ever heard it. He whispered, "Why didn't you warn us?" I took a breath. The memory of every dismissed phone call, every ignored warning, every cold remark sat heavy in my chest. I tried. "You told me I didn't know anything." The legal consequences came down slowly, then all at once. Lauren's husband faced federal fraud charges. His business was shut down. Assets were frozen. My parents hired a lawyer to try to separate their home from the wreckage, but it would take months and cost money they didn't have. My father stopped talking about how Lauren deserved special things. My mother stopped calling me awkward. Lauren deleted her social media. The glamorous photos disappeared like they'd never existed. Eventually, the family reached out to me again. Carefully, politely, with a kind of cautious respect I'd never heard from them before. But I didn't rush back. I chose distance instead of revenge. I didn't cut them off completely, but I set boundaries for the first time in my life. I continued my career. I got a small raise that year. Nothing flashy, but I walked into work every morning knowing my value. Rachel remained the only relative I spoke to regularly. She understood me in a way the rest of them never tried to. They spent years treating me like I didn't belong in their world. In the end, the truth came from the one person they pushed out of it. If you've ever been pushed out of a family event, if your relatives treated you like you didn't belong or didn't matter, then I want you to know something. You're not alone. So many people have been excluded by the very people who were supposed to love them unconditionally. And it doesn't make you less. It makes them wrong. I want to hear from you. Tell me your story in the comments. Tell me about a time someone in your family underestimated you or made you feel invisible. Let's build something here. A place where people support each other instead of tearing each other down. Click hype to help this story reach others who need it. If this story connected with you, if it made you feel something real, then subscribe. Because these stories matter. Your story matters. When you share what you've been through, you give someone else the courage to speak up too. Every comment, every hype, every subscription helps this message reach someone who is sitting alone right now feeling like they don't belong. And I want them to know they do. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. And thank you for sharing your voice.